Welcome to the first in probably a two-part quick start guide to using the new version 3 side loader. So I think we should step through the menus one by one. So the device menu shows you the device, obviously. The loader isn't, there isn't room for the loader to support lots of different hardware, so it basically targets the device it's compiled for and none other. So obviously this one targets this Jesus Christ. Alright, welcome to part 1 of the quick start guide for the new side loader version 3, which is released as part of the Ultimate 1MB firmware, Incognito firmware, 1088XEL firmware, 1088XLD firmware. It's also available for the AVG cart, and it is supplied on the standalone side 2 cartridge, or can be applied to the side 2 cartridge if you need to upgrade it after the fact. The newer firmware is available from Atari's shop, but it won't be this generation of firmware. It'll be version 2 of the firmware, hopefully, when this update beds in a little bit. It'll find its way onto the retail products. Make life a little bit easier for everyone, although it's very easy to upgrade after the fact. So in this video we're going to focus on standalone operation, not worrying about integration with Ultimate 1MB, that kind of thing. This machine, this 600XL, does have an Ultimate 1MB board in it, but I've turned everything off. Well, we'll have to try and remember not to jump into the BIOS menu, because of course that's still there. But there's completely stock XL, aside from, I think I left the extended memory on. That makes no difference whatsoever. For the purpose of this demonstration, I need to pop this up to the loader position, the switch, so that it boots straight into the loader. I've had 2 abortive attempts at making this video. On the first take, I thought I'd discovered a bug. I realised I hadn't upgraded this cartridge yet, so it's still at an old pre-release version of the loader. And then another subsequent take was abandoned when I noticed that the device menu was reporting a side 1 cartridge, when this is of course a side 2 cartridge, which sent me scuttling back to the PC to discover a missing pair of brackets on a compiler directive, which had caused the bit of code which puts the number 2 in when a side 2 is detected to be skipped. So I fixed that, flashed it back, which is why the switch is in the lower position. So we'll start at the beginning and turn the machine on. You'll notice that we don't get that flash of blue anymore with version 3. The operating system screen editor open is suppressed. So we get a nice smooth experience, a smooth segue into the loader. So anyway, we'll go through the menus one by one. Hopefully I won't discover or notice anything untoward this time, with a bit of luck. It's getting really tiring. Obviously this is going to be released, this is version 3.2, this should be released by the time you see this video. It's got a couple of patches for bugs that were discovered after the fact. So the device menu just shows you obviously the device targeted by the particular build of the loader. The loader doesn't attempt to support or detect multiple different devices. You flash the side loader, the side cartridge, the side loader for the Incognito targets that hardware, etc, etc. So you'll never see more than the expected number of entries in this menu. If you press return, it simply catalogues the MBR partitions, master boot record partitions, on the device. Now the first thing, we just use we're using the left and right cursor keys, by the way. There's no need to press Control with them. Now the first thing you might notice about this one is that typically you'll just have one fat partition, maybe an APT partition. Obviously we can't use that when there's no ultimate 1 megabyte involved, but it will, if we open it by pressing enter, it does show you what's in there, or the first screen fold. You can't do anything with it, but it's there just for reference. But anyway, you'll notice that there's quite a few fat partitions on this cards, 4. I've got cards with more than 4 on them. This loader will actually handle up to 14 partitions, I think, including the APT partition. You might ask why 14. Well, the number 15, a count of 15 partitions, has a special meaning in the configuration. That means nothing selected at all. So there was a reason for it anyway, and I think the other bit patterns are used as well. So 14 anyway, and you can add as many as you want after the fact, and they'll all be displayed here. They're not displayed in any particular order. So now for a while, I think for the last couple of versions, the loader has remembered which fat partition you were last in, optionally. I think optionally previously, I can't remember. So if we've selected test 3, which is a fat 16 partition, if we turn the machine off and turn it back on again, we should go straight back into test 3. Now this has been expanded a little bit now, such that we can tell it to remember the last accessed folder, which is recall folder. So if we go into the ROM folder, let's say, and we might run something from here, we might run LWXEX or what have you, and in fact let's go ahead and do that. We'll just do that, and then we can press the button again, press the reset key, back to the loader, and it remembered that we were in the test 3 ROMs, the ROMs folder of the test 3 partition, which is rather useful, I think. You may find that once you've drilled down into a folder, you might want to keep coming back there. You can turn this off if you want. You just have to disable recall folder, and that functionality will vanish. You'll always go back to the root directory. Okay, so it remembers the last accessed folder, which can be very handy. So we go back to the root folder, we'll go back to the games folder, in fact. A little bit about navigation, I suppose. All the folders, the subdirectories, are grouped at the top of the list with a little wedge in front of them. They're grouped in alphabetical order, and then you've got all your files in alphabetical order beneath. The maximum number of files that you can have in the list is 250, but as of this version we can handle longer directories by paging through them, 250 entries at a time. I don't have a large folder here to show you this, but I'll try and do that in the next video if I remember to prepare one. So to go into a folder, we just press enter on its name, and then if we go into another one, and it stacks, it remembers the path that you took. So if we go back, it remembers that you were in demos rather than highlighting the top entry. And if we go back again, there we are. Now you can also get out of a folder by pressing the escape key, if you prefer, or you can press the parent, Control and P, parent folder. Now it was a little bit difficult to design these two graphics. This one means back, that one means up to the top. It's not necessarily intuitive, but I figured that you're more likely to want to go back than you are to the root directory. So the root directory is the second entry. So if we go down 2 levels here and we go to the top level, we'll go straight back to the root. Alright, so as far as navigation is concerned, we have a few amenities. We can go directly to the end of the list with Control and Z. Control A takes you to the top of the list, and we can jump ahead by a full screen with Shift, Control and up arrow and down arrow to go up and down the list. As you can see, we've got a proportional scroll bar in the corner here, which gives you an idea of not only where you are in the list, but how much of the list you're actually seeing at any given time. You can also operate the loader with the joystick. I'll quickly plug that in just to show you how it works. I believe it's already activated. I better check. We change that to port 1. Alright, so we can go, got the joystick here, up and down, left and right. We can also go to the top by moving it diagonally to the top left corner. We can go to the end of the list by moving it diagonally to the bottom left corner. We can go screen up with diagonal top right movement, and down by a screen with diagonal movement to the left. And we can launch programs just by pressing the button. I'll get more into the advanced joystick use maybe in the next one. We'll save up some of the more fancy gestures later on, but yes, you can control pretty fully the loader without using the keyboard at all. So as you've seen there, it's easy enough to launch an application. Just basically cursor to it and press the enter key. Now the search facility has been quite significantly improved for this version. It used to be, I think it used to be limited to about, was it 256 folders cumulatively in total, and then I got a test disk which I think was downloaded from Atari online.pl or org or whatever it is, and it had 5,000 folders and about 19 and 20,000 files. I forget how many files it had. There were a lot of files, and it couldn't cope at all, so quite a lot of time was devoted to making the search facility a lot more powerful. The search, when you to search for something, you just start to type, and it will start the search straight away. And when you edit the string, it starts again, and it starts. The scope of the search is basically from the logged folder downwards through the tree. So if we go into this ATR folder, we don't find anything at all. We could search for demos. The search will find, it'll present matching folder names as well. Now, if you get a search result that includes a folder name, you've got two options. You can either press enter and it'll actually log that folder, or if we go back where we were again, in fact we go to the top level and we'll search for that string again. If I could remember, that's not very helpful because I can't remember which one it was. Ah yes, so it's the uppercase demo. So we search for demos, we know the one we're looking for was in uppercase. If you want to know where that object, that item, that folder or file is in the file system, you can press the Control and F key, and it opens, in this case it opens the parent folder and highlights the found item. It's a little bit more useful if you, let's have a look and see if we can find something that's in a folder. There's nothing in here, obviously. If we go in here, if we go, let's see. Yeah, it would be helpful if there was something in these folders. Let's just use this as an example. We'll use chess as an example. So let's go to the home. Oh, it's another shortcut. Control H will go to the top level directory. If we search for chess and we find chess, but we don't know where it is, we want to know where this item is. If you then press Control F, it opens the containing folder and highlights chess, so you know where it is. So that was, yeah, so I meant to mention that one before. Control H takes you back to the root folder. The search is, it can now handle a more or less unlimited number of folders and a more or less unlimited number of files. The only limitation is that if you get more than 250 results, it will stop. Other than that, it can chew its way through quite a lot of stuff. So if you search for all the XEX files on the disk, of which there are quite a few, you can see that it finds them all, and you can go ahead and run them from the search results like that. The other thing with the search facility is while it's actually busy searching, this is pretty hard to catch because it's pretty fast now, you can cursor around while the search is actually collating results. That's not a problem at all. And if you happen to select a file, if you move around, once you've started to move the cursor, the highlight will track that entry. So if we try, for example, if we go to the last entry, you'll see that the highlight bar tracks that entry that you've moved to. Loading XEX files is pretty quick. If we look for YUMP, it reads the files in about more 70-80k a second. Trying to find a good one that's reasonably large. I can't remember really how long these things took. Atari Blast's quite a good indicator because it has a counter on the screen and it gives you a fairly good idea how quick the thing is. I won't wait until it's finished loading, but that gives you an idea of the speed. So yeah, so that is gives you an idea of some of the basic improvements that have been made here. If we go to the other menus, a lot of these aren't relevant until we mate the side 2 with the ultimate 1 megabyte, and then things get really interesting. Now we've got some options here as well. Basic disabled, that's probably what you'll normally have because most things need basic to be disabled. Fat FMS, I don't know many people have played with this yet. This has been around for a while, but it's been expanded quite a bit. Now it will handle fat folders, subdirectories, in a more or less in a manner more or less compatible with Sparta DOS X. Show size, as you can notice that there were File sizes next to the entries. We can turn that off if you prefer not to see them. I like to have them on. We can change the colour, of course, as before, and that's that recall folder feature, and the rest should be pretty self-explanatory. But FMS, if I quickly demonstrate that, because the loader will load basic files as well, and I've also got, I did write a test application to test the FMS file. So this is just a little throwaway tool that shows the FAT file management system. So this is like a small DOS that installs low down in memory, but it works with the FAT partitions on the card. So if we get a directory of all the folders, just everything that hasn't got an extender, if we cd, you only get the truncated alias, of course, for any long file names. So if we cd test41, we go into here. So this is all just accessed via essentially what you would call XIO commands. They're compatible with Sparta-DOS-X, but your Sparta-DOS-X application isn't going to think it's running under Sparta-DOS-X, of course. So you can't, it doesn't have the Sparta-DOS-X signature at hex 700 or anything like that. But anyway, it's there and it can be used. We can cd to test G1 directory, and cd back one level, oops, cd and cd cd test and cd atl and cd to the root. UFlash does take advantage of this feature. This is read-only, of course, but you can run UFlash from the loader and navigate the entire directory tree to find the file you're looking for. I did mention what is the command to get out of this. There we go, and that'll take you straight back to the DOS. DOSVec does point back to the loader and the side and ultimate 1 megabyte. So if you leave the FMS and go back to DOS, it'll start the loader up again. I did mention basic programs. I've got some here, I think. So it loads basic programs, no problem. And obviously we've got Altera Basic here, which I think has a dir command, and the dir command will list what's on the FAT. And if you issue the relevant XIO commands from Basic here, you can change the current directory and all that sort of thing. Unfortunately, you can't write back to it, but that would be in a whole other can of worms. More ROM space, more looking for code and looking for places to put code. I just you have to call time on this at some point. It would be nice, but maybe for another version or something like that. But so we type DOS from Basic, we go back to the loader as well. So yeah, so that covered most things. The only other thing you can do without ultimate 1 megabyte is run some of these ROMs, just 8K ROMs. We've got the Atari assembler editor. We hit return on that, we get the assembler editor cartridge, and you do have access to the file management system as well while running one of these cartridges. It's reset proof as well, because it tricks the operating system into thinking Basic's actually present when it isn't. So we go back to the loader again, and a couple of other cartridges work like that. Yeah, if we run Altera Basic, this is a soft loaded version of Altera Basic, although I know this machine actually has Altera Basic and ROM, but this is soft loaded, and if we type dir, as you can see, we've got a directory of the folder that we launched the program from. So that's basic operation of the loader standalone, and in the next video we will involve Ultimate 1 megabyte, which will allow us to mount disk images and partitions, and we will also later on cover these new OSS cartridge ROMs that EB Guy, Eric Backer, kindly provided, and I've integrated these into the ROM, version 3 ROM. So anyway, that's about all for the moment, and in the next video we will cover all the other good things you can do with the new version of the loader. So thanks for watching in the meantime, and give it a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you're not already subscribed. I'd appreciate that very much, it really helps. So bye for now, and see you in the next video. But typically what you'd probably do is you'd just hit enter